I'm pleased that among the guests of our 24 TAL conference, I have Mr. Tilo Jörgel, who is the manager of prestigious IFOY Award and TestCamp Intralogistics. Welcome, Tilo.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
I would like to start with a more general question. What topics are resonating now in German logistics and supply chain? I mean, especially with connection in digitalization and automation within the supply chain?
Yeah, of course, everybody is dealing with the political situations and everything about triple transformation from digitalization and sustainability, but also being strong as a company, not being affected by all the disruptions. That's probably one of the main topics, and you have all at the same time. You know, it's the new normal is like getting a permanent normal, as we also heard here at the conference. People have to work on many different topics at the same time, but there has been also changes. It's been a lot of the companies have been talking a lot of about costs in the past years, but nowadays it has changed. According to surveys, it's more about cybersecurity and the problems with the lack of labor that we have in industrial lands and countries, and of course digitalization is also one of the big problems, but other things like costs and also sustainability have maybe gone a little bit behind that because of the disruption and everything that happened.
So you mean that the people or companies are willing to invest more for technologies and to new MRs and automated systems and also the digital infrastructure behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. They have to because, you know, the scarcity of labor is really immense in countries like Germany. So there's definitely a need for that. And also you have all the disruptions. So you want to have smooth processes, you want to have no disruptions, and of course software and automation helps to be on top of the economy in the coming years. So yeah, that's I'm pretty sure. Although, of course, some of the economy or some of the industries are a bit struggling at the moment. But I think they still have in mind that automation is the goal. Either you automate or you die, some people say. But basically, I think there will be budget for automation in the future.
Yeah, I think we had similar today on the speeches during the morning program of the conference. Yeah, and if I understood it correctly, so your main event is probably IFOY Award, which is one of the most prestigious prizes in intralogistics in the world. Yeah. So can an ordinary mortal person attend it, and can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Well, IFOY Award started 12 years ago, and the idea was to have a special award that is for sure international and not a German thing. And now it's we have the jury comes from almost 20 countries all over the world, and the reach is really high. So we have about 1.6 billion online and more than 4,000 articles each year that are written about the IFOY Award. So it's got an international approach, of course, but the other thing was also to concentrate on quality. So not somebody clicks on the internet and then somebody wins, but really to have an audit that we have a 3-stage audit, the testing. We have a scientific independent testing from well-known researchers from Fraunhofer, but also universities in Germany, and also a testing procedure that has maybe 80 different points. So there is really something that comes out that is independent, that the manufacturers could also have a look at and send it to their customers. And but coming back to your question, of course, if you're a manufacturer and if you have an innovation and if that's the requirements of the statutes are within your product, that is on the market and that it's working and it's not just a prototype or anything like that, so you can participate at the IFOI award. And for the ceremony, we also invite customers and researchers and media and politicians and so on.
So the typical customers can take part in it, and they have an approach, they can touch the technologies?
Yeah, that's why we founded the test camp Intralogistics, which is the home of the IFOI test days, because in the beginning they brought all the products like the forklift, the robots and the software, they brought it all into a hall, and then we flew in the jury members. But then we had a high interest of the customers from automotive, from retail, from logistics providers. They wanted to see these innovations as well at the beginning of the year, because they wanted to know what's new and what could I maybe use. And so we opened the test days in the so-called test camp for people that are customers, basically who have budget. And so we have now C-level people who really come and test there as the jury does. In Dortmund for 2 days, and that's a good success. We had 1,200 people on 2 days, and that had really intensive talks and a conference as well. So that's what we built up in the past years.
And I also read that you during the test camp Intralogistics, you also organized together with VDMA so-called AGV mashup. Where you test the VDA 5050 standard. Can you explain what exactly is involved and what is such communication, because this is communication standard for the AIVs, AGVs. What is it about?
Yeah, well, the whole story starts before 2018, when the big automotive companies said they started this initiative. They wanted to integrate under one control system different mobile robots from different manufacturers, so that they did not have only one system and one supplier. So the idea came within the VDA, and they worked together with the VDMA, with the manufacturers in the VDMA, that they could develop one standard, which is called VDA 5050, which basically is a communication standards for the mobile robots, and with the control system. And then they started to work in that working group, and then they had it's technically quite complex, but then they had this standard from the very basic, and then we were really proud that we had the world premiere in 2021 in Dortmund, when they brought together, I think it was 7 or 8 different manufacturers with their mobile robots under one control system, and they could communicate so they didn't crash into each other, and they could do certain different tasks. And it worked out well, and then we had it 4 times now in Dortmund, always with different tasks and different standards, and going deeper into the technology and what they could do and so on.
So you can also, for example, implement something what was mentioned today during presentation, like right-hand rule, or maybe some artificial intelligence decision making between this. Or how is it, maybe another way, how it is steered? Is it steered by just one of the maybe cloud software which is behind this and which is communicating to all of the devices, or AMRs, AIVs, or are there several steering systems and they are talking together?
Well, basically it's an integration of WMS and also ERP that comes into that control system. And you still have the fleet management system under it, but on top of it you have the control system that gives all the information in a kind of pull push-pull system to these vehicles, so to say. And of course, you can then bring in some artificial intelligence about what are the most important tasks they have to do, which one is the shortest way, which battery is low, and things like that, so that the information is all then grabbed together. But I'm not the specialist for it, but the guys.
So there is also, it's not just communication between the physical technologies like these mobile robots, but there is also vertical communication with warehouse management systems, ERPs, and so on, which are placing the orders for transport and can get some feedback about what was moved and so on.
Yeah, that's the idea behind, because you get the information from the warehouse and what you're doing, and then of course in a physical way. You have the systems that the mobile robots don't crash into each other on the shop floor, but it's all over. It's an integrated system.
We are filming our interview as a part of TAL conference here in Pilsen. What is your feeling about this conference?
Yeah, I like it's very professional, organized, and it's got that international flair between the German companies and the Czech companies, and I think it's a good mixture between best practice examples that we've seen from the suppliers, but also in the beginning from a more academic point of view, what's going to happen in the future and what you could basically do. But I like the best practice examples that we also have at TestCamp, of course. And yeah, this international flair of this region that has, like what the guy said, 65 billion euros between Czech and Germany. So it's quite a big impact there.
Concerning, you mentioned that you started like 4 years ago doing this VDM, the AGV mashup, and so I think that you are the first in the globe doing something like this, or is some other organizations trying to do the similar things in the world?
Well, actually, this initiative came from the VDMA some years ago. 4 years ago, we had started with that. But there is also other initiatives for standards, like in the US, which is called Mass Robotics, and also other standards that are being developed. So, but still, this German initiative coming from, well, you know, all the big OEMs and all the big players is quite strong, and in Europe it's now getting one standard, and yeah, well, yeah, it's like always with the best standard will survive somehow, or maybe we have several standards in several regions of the world, but you know, if an OEM goes from Germany to China or to India, they usually take the standard with them in Kenya.
I think that's an advantage, that we as Europeans are good in creating such a standards, which then can be in operation for another 50 years, because we as IMTech, we are an EDI company also, and the VDA or that standard or so they are still used globally in the unchanged version for many years. Yeah, so something, and also it's interesting for me to hear it, because today you hear a lot of news from US and China concerning artificial intelligence. I think this is something which Europe is bringing into the game about the standardization, and this is our strength, I believe.
Yes, I kind of agree with you that it's still a strength, but we shouldn't neglect countries like China, which is the biggest intralogistics market, and we have really strong players also in China who want to come to Europe, and they will probably also adapt to that standard, and they have. I think we also have Chinese companies that take part at the IFOY award, and they have a lot of advantages as well. They're super fast. They are low cost compared to the Europeans. So, and also they caught up with technology. And so I think it's an interesting constellation that we are going to see in the future. And there's obviously going to be, in the mobile robotics market, there's going to be a huge consolidation in the market, and also the prices will go down. Yeah, it's interesting.
And do these Chinese producers and manufacturers also take place in IFOY Award?
Yes, they do take place. Also, we had one winner some years ago. It was the company called BYD. You know that from car manufacturing. But they also had forklifts, and they're on a very advanced battery at the time. And they got an award. And so it's a company that is not only in the car and bus business, but also in material handling. Yeah.
We were talking about the cross-border reach of the conference. Can you imagine any kind of cooperation or synergy between, for example, IFOY Award and activities here in Czech Republic or Middle Europe?
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about what we could do, bring some customers to test camp and give them the chance to test and really interact with the manufacturers and everything that is there. So it's yeah, we are of course international. We have people from Holland, from the Netherlands. We have people coming from Italy, and also of course we're open for everyone basically. Yeah.
So generally everybody can contact either you or us in Aimtech, and we can direct them to next test camp Intralogistics.
Yeah, we can. We're networked now.
Yeah, and maybe last question from my side. And what is your message to logistics and manufacturing companies and technology suppliers from Central Europe in relation to IFOY Award?
Yeah, well, we've just heard it here at the conference, and we also have it heard at the IFOY Award. Be open, cooperate, build your networks, and also not only just watch what is going on and then be the last one who adapts the technology, but also start with technology maybe in small steps. Be aware that you could also fail, but make it in small steps. Don't think about huge years ongoing plans, but small steps, and then you will see, because I think if you have the right technology, that will be a solution for the future, and of course you have to have the right people as well.
So that was recommendation of Tilo Jorgl, manager of IFOY Award and Test Camp Intralogistics. Thank you for the interview.
Thanks for having me.